then sometimes a calendar needs to be more than just a calendar.
Okay, what do you mean?
So sometimes when you're looking at your calendar, you also want to think about the things you need to be scheduling, right? You might want to see a list of your to-do items. You might want a list of certain people that you're going to be working with. You might want to have certain goals set for certain dates. You might want to have certain files you're going to be working on. Microsoft has a new view for the calendar in Outlook on the web, and as we're filming this, it's only for Outlook on the web, called Board View, that lets you customize your calendar to include all of those different kinds of things. Let me show you how it works.
All right.
So let's use our George test account. Let's go to his calendar. And being a test account, he doesn't have anything on his calendar, but he has access to mine. So let's show my calendar as well.
Okay.
And now we have some real items on there. Remember that in the calendar, we chose our view up here in the top right where we had our days, weeks, and months. And one of these views is the board view. And you might have more than one board view. So you have this arrow over here where you can choose if you have multiple boards you've created. Now we haven't created any yet, so we have this option for new board. If I click on board, it's going to be the same thing. So let me click on that. The first time you do it, it's going to give you a little tutorial that gives you an idea of what you can do. And basically you're laying out elements on the screen. You can resize them, move them around. Let's get started. So this is the default board that it starts you with. You see some of your calendar, and notice it's even telling us that we're seeing two calendars here. If we drop this down, we can see which ones they are. So we're seeing George's personal calendar, and there's the Chip Reeves calendar. We also see a default task list, which George doesn't have any tasks on his list. We see a blank note. And then we see this tips panel. Now this is just kind of showing us how to add stuff to our board view. It's helpful, but after we've been through these tips, we can remove it. Now notice that as I mouse over each of these,
there's a three-dot menu.
There's a three-dot menu. So if I choose that three-dot menu for tips, it gives me the option to resize it or remove it from the board. We'll talk about resize in just a minute. For now, let's remove this one from the board. So I've got my calendar, I've got my tasks, I have my note. This is a free-form board though, so if I want to move things around, I can click on the item, click again and drag, and move it anywhere on the board. If I want to move tasks over, I'll choose tasks, click again, and drag. And with calendar, I can click, and I can start dragging it as well.
Okay, we see a little grid for it to snap to in the background.
Right, and the grid's doing two things. It's giving us some guidance for placement. It's also giving us some guidance for scale. We'll talk about that in just a minute as well. So if I want to add something else to the board, notice I have this Add to Board option. And by default, it shows 4 things. Let's say I want to add another calendar. I can choose Calendar. It gives me this box to choose one of my calendars. In this case, let's choose the Clemson Tiger calendar. I'll click Away. And now we have a Clemson Tiger calendar. Now I'm going to click and then drag this over here to the left. So now we have our Clemson Tiger calendar. Notice that's just an agenda view. Over here we have our main calendar, that's in a few days view.
Now, Chip, can you change the view on the calendar once you've added it to the board?
Sure, so it's in our three-dot menu. So let's take our two calendars here. If I choose the three-dot menu, I can choose View. And let's say I want to change this to a 5-day view. I can do that. Notice it got a little bigger now. It's overlapping my tasks, so I'll probably want to drag that over to the left a little bit, make more room.
Got it.
Now, if I want to resize one of these calendars, there's 2 ways I can do it. If I'm on a computer with a mouse, I can just mouse over the edge and drag like you would almost anything else. But if you're on a touchscreen device, you can't really click and drag. So the three-dot menu gives us a resize option that gives us some handles you can drag. With the mouse, it works exactly the same, but with your finger on a touchscreen device, it's much easier that way.
Well, Chip, especially when you stretch things out, it seems like you're going to run out of room pretty quick.
Yeah, maybe, but the board is actually a lot bigger than you think. Notice in the bottom right we have a magnifying glass, and when I click on that I can zoom in and zoom out. So let's zoom out.
Oh.
And we have a lot more room here at 50%, so I can actually take my calendar and drag it way over here if I wanted to, and take my task list and drag it way over here if I wanted to. That's probably a pretty useless way to arrange things, but we could if we wanted to.
Okay, and now if I want to get back to my normal view, I can just zoom in with the little magnifying glass?
You can, or you can also zoom in to 100%. I can also press the reset button. That puts me at 100% and it centers me on that larger board, so I'm going to start off in the middle.
Got it.
But this is still kind of a useless board, so I've got to scroll way over here to the right. Notice that when I start scrolling, I get this little image of where I'm scrolling to. So at least gives me some visual idea of where I am. I'm going to scroll back out, and let's fix this. Now we've reset it back to just a task list and our calendars. Now, in fact, this task list doesn't have anything on it. I happen to know that George has a couple of things under a different task list called work. So if I choose this drop down, I can change to see his work task list, and now we're seeing those things here. And again, I'll resize that a little bit to make it a little bit nicer. Let's look at what else we can add to our board.
All right.
So under Add to Board, if I choose Note, what this is going to do is it's going to add a blank sticky note. Now this is the same as the Sticky Notes app in Windows 10. It's the same as the notes we've seen other places in Outlook. It's the same as the notes that you see in the Microsoft Office app on your mobile device. But the weird thing is, at least in this current version of Board View, you can't add an existing note. You can only create a new note.
Okay.
So in this note, if I say, "Hi, Ben," and click away, so I've created the note. I can even change the color. Let's make this more of a yellow. So it's a great sticky note on my screen here, but it's also going to be in my other apps. So for example, if I go back into my Outlook Mail app and scroll down to the Notes section,
There it is.
there's the new note we created, but notice that I didn't get the opportunity in Board View to add any of these other notes that were already there.
Okay, so you can add an existing calendar or an existing task list, but only new notes.
So far, that's true. Hopefully they'll add that feature in the future.
All right.
Let's go back to our calendar and back to our Board View. Let's look at what else we can add in our next lesson.
All right.